Good Shabbos, everyone. So what a week it's been in the Middle East. We've all experienced so much news since October 7th, 2023. But this week, so much news. President Trump's visit to the Middle East, a potential deal with Iran, and of course, Idon Alexander's return home after 584 days in Hamas captivity. Idon is a young man whose has his life ahead of him, whose survival after months of captivity is a miracle. Blessed are you, Lord of the universe, who releases the imprisoned. We pray for his healing, his family's strength. And while we continue to pray for the release of every hostage, we can celebrate together these few moments of respite in this very long war. The prophet Jeremiah gives us words to express our thanksgiving. He said long ago, "And there is hope for the future, declares God. Your children shall return to their country." And as I was with the Biden administration when they secured releases, I am also grateful now to the Trump administration for its unrelenting efforts to free the hostages. But there's still work to be done. 58 people are still being held in Gaza, at least 23 of whom are believed to be alive. How do we get them home? In an ideal world, IDF soldiers would be able to do so. And given their courage and their brilliance, it's always possible. But of course, it's more likely that the remaining hostages will be brought home through a hostage deal. Now, all Israelis agree that every life is precious and every hostage must come home. But at what cost? It's a heated debate right now in Israel, throughout the Jewish world. Should Israel agree to a comprehensive hostage deal now that does not completely destroy Hamas? And there are basically two sides in this debate. On one side, you have those who urge an immediate hostage deal to secure their release, even at the cost of returning thousands of Palestinian prisoners, some convicted as terrorists with blood on their hands, and at the cost of immediately ending the war with Hamas remaining as a viable terrorist organization in Gaza. Those on this side of the debate tend to be secular, from the center to the left. Many are supporters of the opposition parties not currently in power, but not all. Here's something that I find interesting. Ultra-Orthodox Israelis support a hostage deal, even though they also support Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his right-wing governing coalition. For them, it's a matter of centuries-old Jewish laws that stipulate that hostages must always be ransomed, no matter the cost. Each life is too precious to do otherwise. So that's one side of the debate. On the other, you have those who urge continued Israeli military pressure on Hamas to secure the release of the remaining hostages. No deal until Israel completely uproots and destroys Hamas, even at the cost of jeopardizing the lives of the remaining hostages. Now, while of course they too don't want hostages to die, they see no future for Israel and, for that matter, Gaza if Hamas remains in any form. Those on this side of the debate tend to be more religious, not ultra-Orthodox, but to the right, modern Orthodox, if you will, in American terms, from traditional to more nationalistic Israelis who voted for and tend to support Prime Minister Netanyahu and his governing coalition. Those are basically the two sides of this debate. Where do you stand? What are your thoughts? Well, of course, we don't live in Israel. We care. And we know that this is the most important issue facing the Jewish state today. Tonight, thousands of brave IDF soldiers stand ready to go back into the Gaza Strip to fight Hamas terrorists for the largest military operation of this war. We're at a crucial juncture. So tonight, I want to tell you what side of the debate I now stand on. But first, a few caveats. I don't have family serving in the IDF. I don't personally know of any of the hostages. I don't have to run to shelters on a nightly basis from Houthi missiles like too many Israelis have to do. And I don't have plans to rebuild a home near the Gaza Strip. So even when I disagree, I will always advocate for the actions of any democratically elected government of Israel. Today, Prime Minister Netanyahu represents Israel and in many ways the Jewish people to the world. I'll always pray for any prime minister, including Benjamin Netanyahu, to make sound judgments and only bring well-being to us all. I pray for his success. And no matter what the Israeli government decides, I'll always support the state of Israel. I'll also respect those of you who may disagree with me this evening. I always invite respectful debate, especially about Israel. We should never be afraid to discuss such important matters. And as a rabbi and committed Zionist, what do I think right now, as of this evening, is the best way forward? So I, Rabbi Brian Strauss, I'm now hoping for a comprehensive hostage deal. One that brings back every hostage right now and ends this current war, even if Hamas is not completely destroyed. And here are my reasons. I have 4 reasons. Number 1, religious reasons. As I mentioned before, I, of course, don't always agree with my ultra-Orthodox brothers and sisters, but I do agree with them on this. The return of the hostages takes precedence. We Jews, unfortunately, have had to ransom hostages for thousands of years. Ancient Jewish communities would pay enormous prices to get a fellow Jew back. Chronicles describe entire Jewish communities in the Middle Ages coming together to sell property, donate gold, and liquidate assets to pay huge ransoms, often impoverishing themselves in the process. Why? Because fulfilling what is considered one of the greatest mitzvot, redeeming the captive. And in Judaism, according to Jewish law, there's nothing greater in our tradition than the value of life. Each innocent life is precious and priceless. Rambam Maimonides explained over 800 years ago that the duty of ransoming captives supersedes even the duty of charity to the poor. And that is why, even though Hamas may still be left and potentially hundreds of terrorists will be freed, religiously, it's still considered a mitzvah to make a deal. Number 2, the first Israeli Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, knew long ago, long wars are never good for the Jewish state. Not just because it's a small country with a limited amount of resources, but because Israel, he predicted long ago, would always lose the PR war. We're just too small of a people. And even back then, there were just too many people that disliked Jews, and thereby the Jewish state. And as insightful as Ben-Gurion often was, I don't think he could have imagined just how bad the war could get in 2025. While we know that the IDF is an extremely moral army, perhaps one of the most moral armies in the world, we also know that too many people hate us so much, they're willing to distort and lie about the actions Israeli soldiers make to perpetuate the myth that Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza. Sane, rational, truly informed people know the truth. But unfortunately, in our day and age of TikTok, the longer the war continues, the more videos and podcasts will pollute the minds, especially of our young, to make them committed to the destruction of the Jewish state. Mainstream media, it's almost as bad as social media. Newspapers, like the Houston Chronicle, have become so one-sided on all issues, it's kind of become a joke. Remember when our local newspaper was a credible source of news? There's a reason that today only 18% of Americans believe that their local newspapers are an honest source of news. 18%. I imagine the Chronicle is probably 1%. Yet the lies found on social media and in the mainstream media have had an effect. The surveys are extremely alarming, even with American Jews. A month after October 7th, November of 2023, 82% of Jewish voters professed an attachment to Israel. Today, that number is down to 69% amongst Jews. Surveys taken of young, non-Jewish Americans, if you want to be depressed, Google it. I can't even express it tonight. It's not good. And I know, you know, Israel cannot conduct its defense based on world opinion. As the eloquent statesman Abba Eban once said, better a critical editorial than a praiseworthy obituary. But Ben-Gurion also understood that there eventually comes a time in every war where the best strategy may be to find a diplomatic solution. And that brings me to my third reason. Even with the deal that may leave Hamas around, Israelis will now always better defend themselves. We're in a very different Jewish world today, post-October 7th, and it's a very different Israel. With the support of the Trump administration, Israel has created genuine and defensible buffer zones in Gaza, Syria, and even Lebanon. For example, even with the ceasefire with whatsoever left of Hezbollah, every day Israel is freely going after Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon with the tacit approval of the Lebanese government. The same can happen with Gaza. It's been happening with the West Bank for years. Yes, we've all learned the hard way. Hamas can never be allowed to rule Gaza again, ever. But some kind of political alternative to Hamas is needed to ultimately remove the group from power. For that to happen, a deal has to be done. I actually trust that after a deal is made, the United States, under this administration, and other allies of Israel, including moderate Arab governments, are willing to make that happen. Thank God, Israel has weakened Hamas more than any military expert could ever have imagined, doing so in ways that no other military army in the world could do so, doing it all while miraculously minimizing the loss of innocent civilian life. I think we can be enormously proud of the actions of the IDF. But after 19 months of war, the majority of Israelis are tired. Reservists have been called up multiple times, 4, 5, 6 times. Too many soldiers have barely seen their own children, not had time to work, build their own businesses, or pursue their studies. And that brings me to my last reason, number 4. Since I choose not to live in Israel, I feel obligated to go with the majority of Israelis. And for months, polls have shown again and again that a clear majority support striking a deal to free the remaining hostages over continuing the war. The latest survey by Israel's Institute for National Security Studies found that 69% of Israelis support ending the war in exchange for an agreement to return all the hostages. Israelis know better than I do. Because leaving no one behind is essential to the Israeli spirit. Because the country's people know that the world has historically been willing to abandon Jews to their fate. Now, one can see this outlook as noble, narrow, or short-sighted, but it's the reality. And before any more hostages or precious IDF soldiers lose their lives, I, Rabbi Brian Strauss, am hoping for a comprehensive hostage deal to end this war. If you agree with me, I invite your comments. If you don't agree with me, you should reach out to one of my colleagues. Now, of course, no matter where you stand, I do want to hear from you. And no matter what Israel decides, as indications are, there is no hostage deal coming. I will still support Israel and pray for the soldiers and pray that the hostages are released soon. And eventually we all find peace. And I do know No matter where you stand, we all pray for the hostages to soon be freed.